deeply involved in some of the major issues impacting and affecting Rhode Islanders. Healthcare was one. They've done a lot of work in that field. Diversity and equity is another one that they've done a lot of work with. I've had the privilege of working with the Rhode Island Foundation on the Long-Term Education Planning Council that came out with Chart the Course, Stay the Course, which is a guide to how we get to where Massachusetts is. So they've done a lot of work in not just in providing grants to locals, they've done a lot of work in terms of research and best practices and giving a direction to the state. What David and Lisa are doing is they're traveling Rhode Island, they're having focused discussions with people about the future of the state and what the Rhode Island Foundation can do to help facilitate that. So without further ado, let me introduce my good friend, former mayor of Providence, former state representative. We go back a long way, back to the state representative days, and former congressman and now president and CEO of the Rhode Island Foundation. Lisa, are you going to start us off? Lisa's going to start us off. Lisa handles the long-term education planning committee that I have, like I said, have the privilege of serving on. So we're going to start with Lisa, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to join you today, and thank you for all of the work you do across the state on behalf of students and educators. It's greatly appreciated. We're excited to join you today. Tim sort of, queued this up really great to hear from you as we think about the Foundation's future focus. I'm Lisa DiMartino. I'm a Senior Strategic Initiative Officer at the Foundation. And as many of you know, one of our strategic focus areas is on educational success. And as we look to the Foundation's future, we want to be sure that we are allocating grant-making and beyond grant-making resources in ways that are truly responding to community needs. And so your perspectives as on-the-ground leaders in this space is truly valuable and appreciated. With that, I'd like to introduce David Cicilline, our President and CEO, to share a bit more context and to lead us through the feedback exercise we'll go through today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lisa. She was very modest in the way she described her role at the Rhode Island Foundation, but she is the person who's really leading all of the work we've done over the last many years in the area of education. So I want to thank you, Lisa, especially coming into work on a Saturday. And I really want to thank you, Tim, for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to be part of this conference and for your incredible service on the Foundation's Long-Term Education Planning Committee. Tim is a really valuable voice and makes certain that the perspectives of school committees are shared regularly with everyone in the room, so thank you for that. I thought I would just spend 1 minute to speak a tiny bit about the Rhode Island Foundation because not everyone knows a lot about it. The Rhode Island Foundation is Rhode Island's only community foundation, actually one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the country. It was founded over 100 years ago by a group of local donors in 1916. And a community foundation, just in case you may not understand exactly how it works, is a public charity, and it accepts charitable gifts in all shapes and sizes, and we invest those gifts in the financial market so that they grow over time, and then we use a responsible portion of what we earn on that endowment to invest in important nonprofit organizations, scholarships, and also to support other work beyond grant making at the Rhode Island Foundation. All of it is really focused on improving the lives of all Rhode Islanders. And last year, just as an example, we awarded $89 million to over 2,500 nonprofit organizations. The Rhode Island Foundation is the largest funder of nonprofits in the state of Rhode Island. And the way the endowments are designed at community foundations, they're intended to provide a permanent source of funding to help improve lives both now and kind of for generations to come. So we have both those responsibilities to deal with the urgent issues right now, but also the long-term challenges that we face in Rhode Island. And I think in this particular moment, actually, where there's so much kind of conflict and divisions in our country, community foundations are a really unique position to really serve as a kind of unifying force in communities. We possess the ability to kind of mobilize generosity and financial resources to build and activate networks of people, and to provide a really safe harbor during times of uncertainty, and to really celebrate and leverage differing experiences, all with the aim of solving critical community challenges. And I think one of the ways that the Rhode Island Foundation has earned the kind of trust of the community is it's been a place where people can come together to try to solve big problems. So when I got to the Rhode Island Foundation just about 9 months ago, I began with my team there to kind of begin to look at kind of what we're going to do for my time at the Rhode Island Foundation, identify kind of our strategic priorities, look at the way the organization is designed, look at our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And so there's a lot of stuff underway, but as Tim said, we've been kind of traveling around the state and really engaging with Rhode Islanders to be sure that what we identify as our priorities are not just ours, but they actually reflect what the community believes. And so we've done a number of gatherings all across the state, and really to give Rhode Islanders an opportunity to give us their impressions about the Rhode Island Foundation and about what we should focus our attention on. While we're doing that, we're assessing the foundation's fundraising and our grant making and our programs. But this engagement with the public has been a really important part of that. And we've spoken to and listened to a lot of Rhode Islanders. We did a public survey. We did an online survey. We've done focus groups. We've done these Together Rhode Island dinners. And today is another opportunity for us to hear directly from you. And I should say, I'm particularly value your thoughts, because I know being on a school committee, in my view, is the hardest job in local government that there is. My experience as a mayor was that everyone thought because they went to school, they were an expert in education. Turns out there are actually people who serve on school committees who are real experts. So it's also something that people care deeply about because it involves their own kids. And so there's a lot of passion and sometimes belief that they have expertise that they might not have. And so I really say thank you for all of your service, because I know it's a hard job, and I think it's one of the most important jobs in the community. So thank you for doing it. What we've heard so far has been that people are very interested in our focus on education and healthcare and economic opportunities. There's a lot of interest in us playing a more active role in addressing the housing crisis in this state. There's a lot of things we've heard about. What can the foundation do to kind of repair some of the divisions and improve the civic health of Rhode Island? I think that's something you can expect we're going to do when we launch our new strategic plan. We've also heard a fair amount from folks about the climate crisis and kind of Rhode Island's particular challenges as a coastal community, and what the Rhode Island Foundation could be doing in that space. And what we're hoping is to hear from you in addition to those areas. Are there more things, but in particular, the education space, as Tim knows, the constitutional amendment and a new funding formula are all things on our agenda. But we would love to hear from you about kind of your perception of us, but also what you think we should focus on as we move forward. Ask that in these conversations that you keep an open mind, and just obviously you're all colleagues, so I don't have to say be civil to one another, but when we do these in the public, we have to actually say that. And you're going to get a folder right now which has the discussion questions. And I think Tim is giving us about a half hour to do this exercise. So we'd ask that you do two things right away: is designate someone who's going to take notes of the conversation, and designate someone who's going to report out to the group the discussion. So the first question we ask you is, in your opinion, what is Rhode Island's biggest strength? The second question is, more specifically, as it relates to your efforts in education, what successes are you seeing in your community? The third question is, what is one thing you wish you could change to make Rhode Island better? 4, more specifically, as it relates to your efforts in education, what do you see as the biggest challenges, and what are the top 2 things you'd change? And then finally, when you look around the table at all the people here with different priorities or issues, what commonalities do you see in what you're trying to achieve? So if you could just spend time going through those 5 questions, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning, and then we'll do a quick report out, and we really appreciate your willingness to engage with us in this exercise, and thank you. I don't know, the laughter is like, that may not be a good sign. Okay. So what we're going to ask is if you would just take no more than 5 minutes to report out for your table. Now you can either just speak about one or two questions that people were really engaged on. You report any way you want. Lisa's taking notes, and also if you wouldn't mind leaving whatever notes you have, we'll pick them up after, just so we can have all this information, and we won't attribute obviously to anybody, but it will give us the maximum amount of information. So report in any way you want. We could start with this first table right here. Oh, is there another microphone? Oh, maybe come up. Okay, yeah, if you would come up, that way everyone can hear you, whoever's doing the reporting. This table want to go first? You look like you had a lot of participation.
I didn't hear the instruction. I wasn't listening. Good listener. Our table had representatives from Newport, West Warwick, and Cranston. And I think, so shall I just go through the questions, right? What we came up with, our biggest strength, we were small in size, but big in diversity. You know, you have access to a lot of people in a small place, and so use that. As it relates to your efforts in education, what successes are you seeing in your community? We thought the growth in career tech education and the concept mostly of the Learn 365 program, where it's making the community value education more than just the school day. What could we change to make Rhode Island better? Prioritizing education, if anybody didn't say that. But a big crisis, housing for all. Housing for all. What do you see as the biggest challenges, and what are the top two things you'd change? Unfunded mandates are a huge challenge. And then we felt that inflation is a huge challenge for schools, because we're like the family living paycheck to paycheck. School budgets are always very, very tight. And so we feel the inflation, whether it's in our utility costs or transportation costs. You got to still pay your teachers. We can't raise revenues, so that's a huge challenge for all of us. And what when you look around the table with all the different priorities, what commonalities do you see in what you're trying to achieve? I mean, everyone wants more money and more for our students, but we all felt, ironically, a huge divide with our town or city councils, that even our friends on those boards don't seem to trust or value what we're trying to do, and question and don't want to fund and think we're doing things inefficiently and poorly. And it's really an antagonistic relationship, very hard to overcome, the municipal and school divide. So, did I answer everyone's questions? All right.
Thank you.
Our table is made up of people from Bristol Warren, from North Kingstown, from Westerly, and from Charahoe. We did not see a lot of diversity. I'm going to start with number 5. We would like to see more diversity, both in age, color, gender, on our school boards. We would like to see more of a focus on student and less on all of the other stuff, like the riding lawnmower. In our opinion, for Rhode Island's biggest strength, we found ourselves to be resilient, with a high number of small businesses and great community spirit, a sense of community with interdependence, and of course the beach. More specifically, as it relates to our efforts in education, we would like to focus on student and individual students versus teaching all students the same. We recognize that we graduate great kids in so many areas. We would just like them to come back to Rhode Island. So that goes to the housing crisis. One thing we wish we could change, our list was numerous. We would like better school funding. We would like to tap into our ocean resources for a better blue economy, a better appreciation for how our communities are connected, and less us versus them.
Great. Thank you.
Number one, we said one of the things we enjoy about Rhode Island is that, in essence, it's a really large neighborhood There is a wide variety of diversity of experiences and thought in a small place, and oftentimes those folks who make decisions are relatively accessible to all of us, and we will see them in the grocery store, for good or bad. That being said, things that we want to see that our successes in our community is overall goals to try and make things equitable and wonderful resource programs, that there are many, again, in a small space that are accessible for many of us. Our hope looking forward as we think about what we could change, housing was also part of our conversation, cost of living, and addressing those critical needs for our students like food insecurity. In addition, overall goal is making sure that we are able to provide the highest quality education for all of our students. What's that? Oh, and we mentioned politics too. We'd like to address that. Number 4, as it relates to our efforts, what are some of the biggest challenges? What we'd like to change? In general, while they are positive, unfunded mandates. How can we access better funding and have less red tape to address those important issues? And looking at some of our partners in charter schools, how do we ensure that students who have access to all education, specifically high need education, that those students are also supported as well? Finally, our common goals across South Kingstown, Burrillville, and Pawtucket. We're looking at ensuring that students' needs are first. I think that was common in all of our conversation, and overall that we are raising the bar on high quality education.
Great, thank you.
Here's a case where you should go first so you're not sounding really repetitive. So we agree with everybody. The size, access to everybody is easy, that we can be an incubator. Biggest strength of Rhode Island. Efforts to education and successes. I think we all agreed that there's really been a real re-engagement since COVID. Kind of a return to normal. It was mentioned, Narragansett, recovering learning loss. Incorporating different types of education, CTE programs, outdoor learning. We see that also as really being a more recent success, and that it feels like we have a more clear, consistent direction in our communities, and it's Portsmouth and Narragansett. We had a lot of things we wished we could change. No unfunded mandates, get rid of the funding formula, go to a per-child allotment plus money for priorities, get rid of the 4% cap on the total tax levy versus the tax rate, which is kind of a double whammy, I think, for all of us, particularly with rising property values. Comment was made lowering regulations for things like businesses. For number 4, more specifically as it relates to education, what are the top things you'd like to change? It feels like education's being pushed in 2 different directions. On the one hand, state testing, but on the other hand, individual learning, when we want students to kind of find their passions, et cetera, and those seem to not always be reconciled very well. RIDE STAR system, problematic for some districts in that the lowest area is determined by the lowest star rank, and that kind of feeds this negativity about public education. Shrinking budgets, rising needs, creating quality educators, no unfunded mandates, we had that. Public money going to public schools, the private transportation, or transportation to private schools was raised as an issue. Like to see charter schools held to performance standards in order to exist, and then the housing crisis, affordability for young families. For number 5, we had a lot of positivity. We felt people are here for the right reasons and preparing kids for the future. So.
Great, thank you.
The biggest strength is our collaborative and communication with key stakeholders because of our size and accessibility to get stuff done. For example, some of our members here attended the recent Rhode Island Days in Washington, D.C., and have a connection on a personal level with the diversity of representation. So we're pleased about that. The efforts in education, successes in our community, a little bit different in Providence. I was pleased about the ethnic studies being approved, the social emotional learning developments. We're holding our first health and wellness fair later this month. I hope that many of you will attend. And in Jamestown, they are proud of their non-traditional studies. The Global View, they work with the Naval College, the Arts and Communications and Languages, and Sailing and Sports and Recreation programs. In Narragansett, they have an all-student purview of providing resources in any path that that student may choose. They have excellent sports programs in hockey and track and field, and they have a student member on their board that provides an authentic student perspective at their table. So the one thing that we wish we could change to make Rhode Island better, we heard some concerns about having more support from our governor in creating a task force at the state level to be more of an advisor and take a nonprofit approach, and to provide better job in supporting public education, both financially and also just collaboratively, and also the funding formula, improving the messaging of the formula and honing expertise in that formula itself. That was also one of the biggest challenges, is the funding formula in creating more educational leadership and to work more collaboratively together. When we look around the room here, we saw many differences with the lack of minorities in the room. We also feel that one of our greatest strengths is the caring of our students and their shaping their positive future with educational endeavors. Thank you.
Can you just, the advisory committee you were speaking about, that's an advisory committee for the governor on education?
Yes, correct. That would be a recommendation, is to create a task force at the state level with the governor at the helm of that advisory task group to provide just that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. When you get towards the end, everything's already been said. For us, we represent Woonsocket and Warwick. In our opinion, what's Rhode Island's biggest strength? We think our sizes. The smallness of us should make us a great laboratory for things. It often doesn't work out that way, but our size is a plus because we're so small.
I know, it's funny. I was born around, but that's always something we say. Our size is one of our great strengths, and I always wonder, does it actually translate into a great strength, or do we just all feel like it should? But anyway,
Get the question 3.
Yeah.
More specifically, as it relates to your efforts in education, what successes are you seeing? In the Woonsocket realm, there's political change in Woonsocket, which has been a benefit. They were all in agreement. From where we sit in Warwick, our achievement levels are slowly rising, and we've all made big investments in infrastructure. We're in the process of building 2 new high schools. What is one thing you wish you could change to make Rhode Island better? This gets to size, less parochialism. We're small, but we're parochial. And I think that's just a Rhode Island thing. Apathy among the public, among parents. Even though we're school committee members, our school committee meetings, I don't know, I can speak for us, they're not very well attended. We live stream them, we don't get very many viewers. And unfunded mandates, which Emily mentioned. As it relates to our efforts in education, what do you see as the biggest challenges or the top 2 things? Well, there were a few things here. New graduation requirements appear to be targeted for kids to go to college. College isn't for everyone. Unfunded mandates again. Funding mostly at the state level. The funding formula needs to be revised. It's been way too long since it's been revised. And then how charter schools get funded. We have a parallel school system, and we don't fund it that way. Constitutional amendment to a right to education, attendance, teachers and students, staff and students, and a selective deficit ride at times to our issues and our concerns. Last one, when we look around the table, what commonalities do you see? We all have a belief in public education. That's why we're here. We believe in the value of it and how good it is and how much better it can be. commonalities, we all have funding issues. We all have funding concerns. We're all for bettering student outcomes, and I think we're all in favor of a constitutional amendment. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, we had representatives from Coventry and Cumberland at our table. What is Rhode Island's biggest strength? We thought natural resources and how they're leveraged around the state for innovation and recreation. I think we do a good job with that. And also higher education. I know we have a lot of higher universities, higher learning in the state with their own specialties, and we thought that was a good thing to have in a state that's so small. We have a number of universities that specialize in different things that give options to our students. As it relates to efforts in education, what successes are you seeing? Achievement success and school construction. One thing you wish you could change to make Rhode Island better. We all decided on communication, whether that communication is between state level down to the local level, on the local level, in between different boards on the local level, and local level down to the taxpayer. We think that could be improved all the way around. As it relates to efforts in education, what are the biggest challenges? Top two things you change: unfunded mandates, as everyone else, and funding in general. And as you look around the table with all different people, what are the commonalities do you see in what you're trying to achieve? Just better outcomes in education and more investment in our schools and education. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you again, the foundation, and just really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to hear from you today. And most importantly, thank you for being on school committees. Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
I want to thank David and Lisa for taking the time again on a nice Saturday afternoon and spending part of their weekend with us. Again, I can't overemphasize the important work that the Rhode Island Foundation does on behalf of all of us. Just a couple